and welcome to the Moriah Nightly News on this Monday evening, starting a new week for at least the final full week of June. Hoping that it is off to a good start for you. In any case, from the nation to Moriah, here are tonight's top stories. On Friday, I left off the broadcast, at least on the national scene, talking about what had been taking place that week at the G7 summit over in France. If you remember, I said that the G7 summit was nothing to get intimidated about. All that is a big meeting of world leaders and top officials talking about various economic and foreign policy issues around the world. All of the leading 7 nations are involved in that, hence the name G7. Russia, of course, had been a part of that until about a decade or so ago, and it was the G8 at that time, and now it's the G7. In any case, there were concerns over the president's aging, is where I had left off, and I sped through those headlines because of the amount that we had at that time here on the local level. The president, during that trip, made some disparaging and rather concerning remarks over the nation of Israel. He said things to the effect that there would be no Israel without the United States, which was a very different tone than he had been saying prior. He also said of the war that it was almost like a ticking time bomb, and that is my paraphrase or summation of the president's comments, but highlighting things like oil and inflation as factors in his decision making for almost forcing a negotiated settlement with Iran. A different tone than the appearing to be unfazed a few weeks ago that I had reported on this same broadcast. So all of that to say a very different tone, which is why I hinted at his signs of aging as he appeared fatigued. The Wall Street Journal had noted that he appeared fatigued, and there were concerns over his makeup covered hands at that point in time. But the concern is for the U.S. Israel relations. Of course, they had been strained since October 7th among those in the Democratic Party, or on the left, you might say, with the Free Palestine push and all of that. But I did not anticipate that the president or that this administration would be going with this anti-Israel rhetoric. The president had previously been a big Israel supporter. And this appears to be because Israel was concerned about the deal that the president was making with Iran, the amount of economic relief that it would give, the immediate reselling of oil and things like that they are worried about as they contend with Hezbollah, not to mention Iran's insisting that the Hezbollah-Lebanon conflict be sort of lumped into this deal on the negotiating table, a very strong tactic to negotiate with. And the Pentagon, of course, has been noted, and this was noted in the Wall Street Journal last week, that they are having to find new contractors from the private sector and invoke defense laws and things like that to replace the amount of weapons that were expended in the war. Patriot missiles, THAAD defense systems, and things like that. Those types of basically smart missiles. They're not what we would call dumb bombs that we would have seen in earlier conflicts, say around the Second World War or in that era. Those would have been what we would call dumb bombs, but these are more having with the use of computers and things like that for programming to have the weapon hit its target with precision. And so there were, with that concern, now I do want to make clear this is not a retraction. This is not a retraction. And I would stand by what I had said, that the war was in the best interest of national security, defense, all of that, and that there was some good done with Venezuela and in pushing back China and all of that. But this seems to be throwing all of that away. And throwing it all away with a president that has no need to be reelected again and is not up for reelection in his second term and had victory in hand with economic desperation and with a country that has never lost a war but has never lost at the negotiating table, and it appears that the president has taken the latter course. So again, this is not to deny any of the prior statements, but to say that the turning against Israel in favor of Iran will have consequences for sure. And if you want further context on that, whether that's the news context or the biblical context, it is all available on YouTube. And for now, I will leave it at that because it is a developing story that seems to be changing ever by the day. Nothing seems to be guaranteed. That memo of uncertainty was for sure, and certainly it has been an uncertain conflict in an uncertain time. So we'll be praying. Certainly, praying is number one, and watching to see what will take place on that front. It is worth noting, however, that Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, stated very clearly that without Israel, there would be no United States. Very much flipping that on its head, putting it the other way around in its proper context, that without Israel, there would have been no one seeking religious refuge. How do you make that jump? Without the Church of England, there'd be no Puritans. Without the Catholic Church, there'd be no Church of England. Without the Jewish people, there'd be no Jesus. There'd be no Catholic Church. It's all one continuous spiritual heritage back to the Garden of Eden. Again, that's what I will say on that here, and you can find more teaching and news on that on our YouTube. Here locally, which is the more concern for those in the area, I can get my notes together here. We have been following, of course, a story, as many of you know, for a long time now, at least well over a month, on the proposed battery energy storage systems unit in Ticonderoga that's being proposed down there. The plan was rocked a little bit as in preparation, it was announced that the scheduled municipal facility evacuation committee meeting that was scheduled for tonight at 6 p.m. in the community building did not take place. And I said announced, as in it was reported to me by my team down in Ticonderoga that no one was there from the town board or anything like that. And what it appears to be is that the meeting was canceled without notice to the public. To verify somewhat that claim, there was no notice on the town of Ticonderoga's Facebook page or the town's website that I could find to confirm that. I even checked the Sun Community News to see if they had, or whatever, off chance published anything, and it did not appear that they had either. So that is a development that we will be following in the days ahead for Wednesday. There were, of course, as I'm sure that a good deal of you know, documents circulating that were obtained legally through a FOIL request that has been under investigation by the Eucalyptus Media team for quite some time now. That I have been privately tracking where what these documents say, reading them to get the best, at least an accurate sense of what's in there. They go back at least to, from what I could see, August of last year, conversations about the battery energy storage systems unit and these are varying conversations with different local officials about the project, whether that's the former supervisor of Ticonderoga, the current supervisor of Ticonderoga, the codes enforcer of Ticonderoga, and also highlighted in there is Essex County co-director and CFO of the Industrial Development Agency, Jody Alcott. But there are and in the email with the Essex County IDA is the mention of a non-disclosure agreement. Now, it is not clear from what I read that others have taken that same path of signing an NDA, at least from what could be seen, but it does beg the question. So these documents have gone viral at this point, at least in terms of what viral would mean in a small community like Ticonderoga or the surrounding region. I'm sure that many in the surrounding communities are concerned about this issue. And so we are still tracking the documents and still reading them, investigating what has taken place. It is clear from these documents that it has taken place because, again, these are conversations by email with between the county, the town, and the developer. So all of that is verifiably accurate, true, and tested at this point, it would seem, by what these documents attest to. So and it appears that the town attorney also was in the loop somewhat in terms of local zoning laws, as local zoning laws are discussed quite heavily. Also of note in that were documents concerning the with the zoning board concerning that the firehouse, what was the current fire department, and it would still be current, did not have the capacity to respond to, as it put it, battery-related fires. So even there is a note that there is an awareness of fires, or fires being a possibility for these systems by those in government. So what that will mean going forward, I do not know. And that will be up to you, the people, and your local officials to respond accordingly. And the best thing to do that we have mentioned is to of course pray for things here locally, as much as I had mentioned praying for the national level and the national scene for things there. This would be the time to to pray for our region. Again, these go back as far as August of last year was the earliest date that I saw on the ones that I mean, they were coming in droves, it seemed like. And then in November of 2025, conversations heavily between the Ticonderoga codes enforcer and the company on the zoning laws, the codes enforcement, and that side of things on this issue. So again, that will be a continuing development this week. That will probably be the top story around our region. So that will, that will be up to those in power to find. I don't know if they will be able to respond given the non-disclosure order that appears to be in place there. But again, I can only report what has been put out there, and what happens next is ultimately in the hands of not only them, but we, the people, because it's our voice ultimately. So that is all I'm going to say on that for now as we head into this. It seems like a very heavy topic for sure to start the week, but I don't want to overstate what was in there, but I don't want to understate it either. That it is both, that it is a concern, but also not wanting to go beyond what is written in the report. And so that will wrap it up here for the main news. And don't forget that this week is graduation week, as I know that the graduating this week up in Moriah is a much lighter note, is graduation here in Moriah. And that will be an event worth covering here, as I guess summer will more officially kick off, as today is the official first day of summer, meaning the longest day of the year. So enjoy that extra daylight and enjoy the 2 months of the year that we actually get decent weather. This year, I am very skeptical that we will get anything close to decent weather with what we have had so far, but we will certainly see what happens going forward. And so that will start off the week here at the Moriah Nightly News. I hope you will like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and get our name out into the community. That, of course, is the best form of advertising we could have. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and good night.